Hello, my flower family. I have asked a special guest to come and join me live to talk about business, money, finance, and in particular, the PPP loan, this forgivable loan that the government has offered us here in the United States. And there's a lot of details that go into this. So, of course, I went to the expert. Oh, and here he is. Hello,
Hey,
Ryan.
hey.
So those of you who don't know, Ryan is the founder of Curate. Curate is a floral software that I use, and so many of my other flower friends use to help build and grow their businesses. And when it comes to dollars and figures and really making a business work, this is the guy in the flower world. This is the one who knows it. So that's an introduction to you, Ryan. Do you want to say hello?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm super excited to be on here. I was just on the Intrigue forum just the other day, and I saw your post, and I was like, "Great minds think alike." We're like on the same page here, and like at Curate, we've been like digging into this stuff. I was flipping out when I found about it, and so I love the opportunity here to help out some people who've been really hurting through this time for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely been a challenging struggle time for I think all of us in the industry.
Yeah,
There's been so many of us that we have made some money this year. And I think, we are a resilient crowd. The
right.
flower people, we know how to hustle, we know how to get our hands dirty, we know how to work hard. So we've been doing that. And I gotta say, most of us are afloat. I can't even think of anyone who's actually had to close doors this year. And a lot of that really has been due to that resilience. So
Right.
I know I've been researching, and there's some things about this PPP loan, the second round that they're doing,
Mhm.
that's really interesting, that makes it tangible for us. So do you want to kind of take the floor? And
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
awesome.
so I'll start with this and I'll end with this, but we always recommend your local accountant. And Sarah has a story about this. I think she was talking to me about the other day. Your local accountant is always the best person because they're going to know your specific situation better than anything we talk about here. This is about getting you excited about something that legitimately can make an impact in your business, and about the fact that I think somebody must have wrote a letter to Congress and they finally read it, because like finally it seems like they responded to people in the event industry who are being dramatically affected by this. So that's the biggest purpose of this video. And I'm going to give out as much information as I can on it as I know about it, but definitely you're going to have a lot of information that your accountant can be able to help out with. But when I read it, I know we just have thousands of users who are on our platform who are directly impacted by this. And I got excited for them because it finally seems like they're responding to a real need out there and to the real life situations that people are going through, for sure.
I love it. I think you brought up a really good point. We're excited about this, but this isn't for everyone. And
Right.
your legal counsel, your CPA, those are the people that are going to tell you if this really is right for you. So
Sure.
that was a great disclaimer. Thank you.
I always have to say it, but the thing that I get frustrated about is so many educators are so scared to say anything because of that the people can't learn from them, and at that point, I'd rather just throw that in the front and say, now let's give you what we know, so we can just share our knowledge together and really be a community and grow together when there are these opportunities like this, for
Yeah,
sure.
I get it. It is scary. Giving people advice is scary, and giving information that's always changing and always evolving is
Right.
also scary. So, but neither you or I are scared. So, so can
Right.
we start? Can you tell everyone? Because I know we've studied this, we know it, but can you tell everyone what the PPP loan is? Because I don't know that everyone is involved in this.
Totally. So the actual word behind PPP, or Paycheck Protection Program, and initially concepted was like, hey, we got all these people who are letting off employees. Like, is there a way that we can make sure that these U.S. Small businesses, or initially it was kind of any business, whoever wanted to get money, you can come in and apply for it, which was not exactly probably the right approach, but it's what happened. We want to give you money to keep your employees on board, right? And so it was an incentive program really to help support these small businesses who are struggling, because literally their government was the one saying, hey, you can't do that, you can't work, you can't make money. And specifically due to COVID, um, the obviously the heart behind it's right. Like, let's figure out how, if the government's having to shut stuff down, how do we make sure that we can still survive through this? And it's been hard on a lot of people. And but the flip side of that is, the first round of it, there were a lot of things that were frustrating to small businesses, things such as, well, I'm an event business, there are no weddings, but you're paying me to pay for my employees to be here. for no weddings, right? And so there are things like that that just did not make sense in the program. And so the first time around, again, it was something which was great, but there have been some really great things that have changed since that initial version of it with the second round that makes it just so much more exciting.
Yeah, I think it's really good to talk about, and I feel you kind of going that direction, the difference between the first round and this round, because there's definitely been some clear changes. So I know a lot of people thought that they wouldn't, many designers didn't even apply for this money because they
Right.
didn't think they qualified for it. Can you talk to that about who qualifies for this?
Sure, that's a great question, and that's probably the first thing on their mind because I have a lot of people, and we already are. Our chat in Curate is filling up with our customers, with people that aren't our customers who just see information we're putting out about it, and they're saying, "Hey, do I even? I'm self-employed. Do I even qualify?" And so they just kind of like they kind of ignore it, thinking it's not going to work for me. If you're self-employed, you still qualify for this PPP loan. And this is something you need to take advantage of it. I mean, you got to make these. It's a tough business time right now, and like Sarah was saying, you got to make smart business decisions. This is a smart business decision for you to look at and be able to apply for it. It's a little bit unique. I'll talk a little bit later about like what you qualify for. But if you have a schedule, let's say you're only a Schedule C, and maybe that's your accountant who normally handles that. But normally, if on your accounting or your taxes, you put in a Schedule C, that line at the bottom is the amount of money that your company's made. That's kind of what the government's using to be able to help run the calculation of how much you qualify for. So you still qualify for this if you're self-employed, if you've received it in the past. Let's say you received the first one. There are some, like, again, some granular pieces, like you have to have used all of the funds from that first one for you to be able to apply for this second draw, but you can have a second draw even if you have applied for it. The key thing here, oh, go ahead, Sarah.
And if you didn't apply for it, you 100%, like without question, have access this time. You didn't have to get the first loan to be part of the
Bingo.
second. Yeah.
That's a great point. Yeah, I didn't even think about it from that perspective. Like, you don't think that you're counted out because of this. In fact, it gets even better. I talked to several people that were very discouraged, several event pros that were discouraged after the first time around. They said, I applied twice at 2 different banks and I got declined for it because they ran out of money, and I was just frustrated about it. And that can be frustrating, right? Everybody else is like having their bank account at least something in it to keep them surviving, and you're having to think of more creative ways to make it through. So
Can I interrupt for a second? I think it's a really good point. As we go on, everyone who's listening, like, make a note. If this is something you're interested, definitely, of course, talk to your CPA, but start getting the paperwork, get everything ready now. So as
yes,
soon as these applications open, you can be one of the first to be ready and prepared. I want the floral industry to be the first in line, not the one that starts thinking about the day that the applications open and then a week
right,
later maybe has paperwork together. The money will be gone. This
right.
money will go faster than the first round of money. So be prepared. That's part of the reason I wanted to have Ryan here to talk about this, is because I want to make sure like we are all on our game and ready for this.
That's right. If you're not annoying your banker before it's time to submit, you aren't working hard enough, right? Like, hey, I got this new file. I promise you, on the last PPP, I filed 4 of the different same file, but it just kept changing every single time. But I didn't care because I was like, we got to make sure that we can survive. Like, yeah, we had a lot of our customers asking to figure out a way to defer their payment and all this stuff, and we didn't. We didn't know what to do and whether we were, what would end up on our side. So I totally agree, Sarah. You got to do that legwork. But here's the difference. The key difference between last time and this time, last time was anybody who wanted to apply. I mean, obviously there's some qualifiers, US company, whatever, but just about anybody, whether you were hurting or not, you could apply. This time is so much different because what they're doing is, and I really feel like it was built around event professionals. Like, I thought about event florists, because they're saying you need to look at your quarterly revenue and you compare your 2020 quarterly revenue for any quarter, like January through March, or April through June, but any of the 4 quarters. If that's 25% less revenue than 2019, then you qualify. And so if you are watching this and you have a very heavy retail front, I know some of my retail people, I was talking to one of my floral friends the other day, and they said they lost $300,000 in wedding business, but their retail was up by 74%.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you were saying they lost 300,000 in retail business, because everyone I've heard that's
Right.
not in retail, they're like, they're in heaven. They've made more money in 2020 than they've ever made before, which is, and I'm just kind of scratching my head. I'm like, I've been preaching
How
just
did that happen?
for so long. Maybe there's more to this retail story.
Right.
So
Exactly.
you might hear me getting into that a little bit.
Exactly. Well, and even we at Curate, like we built a tool for this, because so many people were asking for this, we built an orders tool specifically to, with the event florist in mind and trying to build out this new structure. But you're exactly right. And one of the things is if you're a retail and you're a heavy retail operation, you need to make sure you're running those numbers with your accountant. But if it's 25% less than a previous quarter, it doesn't have to be all four of them. It could just be any one 3-month period of Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, then you qualify. And what this does, the reason this is so important is because it reduces all these people that are asking for the money, and it gives you a higher shot at being accepted this time than maybe previously.
Can we take a baby step? Because
Sure.
I love my flower world, but we are not CPAs and we are not as tech savvy and financial savvy. Sorry, it's the truth, guys. I love all of you, but that's the truth. We're just not that person. Can you explain what Q1, Q2, Q3,
Sure.
like what that is and how to look at those numbers?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so basically, and again, I'll throw the caveat on there. Your accountant could have set this up slightly differently than what I'm saying, but I'm going to go ahead and say what 90% of the U.S. does, or most accountants do for small businesses. Q1 is January through March. Q2 is I forgot my months. April through June. Q3 is July through September, and Q4 is October through December. And so it's just kind of the government's or accountant's way of saying, hey, let's look at a 3-month period, because just because February's up doesn't mean March is up, right? And we know this in the floral world. So it's a bigger picture view, but not the full year. And so what you want to look at is, and for a lot of people, this varies, right? Some people might have had a similar Q1, right? Because their events didn't start up till April. So their Q1 kind of looks like their January through March might look pretty similar. If you're event only florist, it might look similar to 2019. I guarantee you, your April through your June do not look the same like they did before. So if only that one, even though your January through your March look okay, if your April through your June looks significant, your top line revenue, and I'm using the word top line, but basically like, hey, this is what money should be coming into us, and your accountant can help you with how yours is interpreted. If that's 25% less, so let's say you did 100,000 in 2019, and you did less than 75,000 in 2020. That's the point that is ding, ding, ding. You qualify for this. Whereas other people who figured out that they had a really large retail side, or they kind of were acting like they were affected, but they figured out another way to make a lot of money, like those people don't qualify for this.
Yeah, I think it's great. So, I lost my train of thought for a hot second. It was really important. Hold on, let's see if I can get this back. When you think okay, so those numbers you're talking about, those are gross numbers. Those are like
Right.
all the money you brought in. That's what our gross is, right?
Exactly.
So that's that 25% difference is not necessarily on the net, which is after your expenses. So
exactly right.
Yeah. So don't worry about like what you made at the end of the year. Essentially, look more of what the spread was between quarter to quarter. Now, is it are they, you may not know because I know things are still changing. Are they giving a certain amount of PPP funds per quarter, or is if you qualify for one quarter, you qualify?
Yeah, if you qualify for one quarter, you qualify, right, for this next round, right? So it's basically just like, what gets me in the door? What gets me on the bus, right? And that's the thing that gets you on the bus is, hey, I definitely did qualify for this. Yeah, so and that's if you pick any quarter and you do qualify for the next round.
Okay, my next question is, who exactly qualifies for this? So I know the financial end, but within that, who qualifies?
Sure, like what type of businesses or?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, great question. And so it's any U.S. business. The qualifications that I have are really, any U.S. business that you filed your taxes. One caveat, and I have talked to a couple florists like this. They started in January of 2012 with their company. It's going to be a little bit harder for you to be able to qualify for this than somebody who's I'm sorry. Yes, 20. Did I say 2020?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Um, and then I know I was talking to one person the other day. They actually started in 2019. So initially I thought, okay, well maybe, but they said even though 2020 they still did less than what they needed to. Unfortunately, because they were so small in 2019, they wouldn't qualify for this particular loan, right? So that's the key thing is like, hey, when did you start up? It's a key question that you have to ask for. So I've got to be able to qualify and have those financial records to be able to show the government this debt did affect me. But other than that, though, I mean, a lot of people disqualify themselves too soon, right? They say I'm self-employed, or they say, hey, I got money last time in the other PPP. You definitely need to be able to look into apply to this for sure.
Yeah, I feel like they've really opened it up a lot. And I know when the PPP first came out, the original one I think came out in March.
Something
I
like
didn't
that. Yep.
qualify the first time it came out.
Sure.
However, once they changed their rules and they allowed sole proprietors to come in, that may not be the right wording, guys. I'm a florist.
No,
I'm
I
not
get it. Yeah, totally.
but once they made those changes, I then did qualify. But
Right.
had I not been watching
Mm-hmm.
diligently, I never would have seen it. So this is this is our
It's
broadcast
huge.
to the flower world. You know now, like we as designers, most of us are going to qualify.
Sure.
Not everyone, but most of us are going to qualify. And even if you don't, it cannot hurt to take that time. You got to organize your books, your financials anyway to pay your taxes. You might as well see if there's a benefit for you in this PPP. And then work as hard as you can to build your business as big as you can.
Yes.
We have a couple more subjects to jump on here.
Well, but that's what you just said goes exactly to the next point, which was this. One of the big complaints. So there's several things that are different in this one, and this is the reason. It's not just that they changed one thing or two things. They changed 5 or 6 key things to make this more specific to people like event florists, right? Who are going through weddings, still canceling, and still like people rescheduling because they're nervous or whatever. I mean, I've heard in some parts of Texas, it's like bigger than ever, but outside of that, like everybody else is facing this situation of like it being in lockdown in California. I mean, I can't tell you how many California and UK florists I've talked to in the last couple months of that just they keep going back into lockdown, and it's understandable, and I understand the logic behind it, but it doesn't, that's why we have PPP is to help in these situations. So one of the key things that's different, obviously one of them is they're better qualifying people for it that we've already talked about. You really were hurt by the situation that's happening. But the second thing that's really impactful here is that they have said, previously the event professionals in the forums I was looking at were saying, well, great, well, I can go get PPP, but then I got to go hire all these people back to do nothing because I have 0 events. This time around, they're doing something mind-blowing. They are increasing. It was just like a really small percentage that you could use on non-payroll. This time, you can actually use up to 40% on specific non-payroll expenses. So, and this is key for everybody to know this, right? There's 4 key things that they're saying, hey, we're expanding this, right? One of them is I'll go through I'll just go through them in my mind the way that they're in my mind. One of them is if you had some events this year, and again, talk with your accountants on the specifics of this, but if you had some events where you ordered the flowers, but maybe you hadn't taken payment. Sometimes corporate companies do stuff where they say, I'm going to pay you after or whatever, but you had ordered the product and you had this sitting in your shop and you didn't do the event and it just died. You have a way, if you can tie that to the actual effect of that event being canceled or rescheduled or you not receiving payment, you can now get that forgiven, right? And that's the correct term, is forgiven, right? So you technically, and again, this is a good thing to remember, it is a loan. PPP is a loan. It's not just it's not like the checks that come in where I'm just getting the check. It is a loan, but it's a loan that can be forgiven so that you don't have to pay it back. So up to 40% of it now could be forgiven for, number one, that product coming in. Number 2 is like PPE equipment. Like if let's say you are doing events still, but you've had like suit up, if you will, to make these events happen, that could be affected. And that doesn't affect the floral industry. It does, but not as much as maybe like a caterer or somebody who's like breathing on food, right? And so that's a second thing. The third thing is if there's any vandalism that happened due to any of the protests or anything that was happening through 2020, like you can get some of that repaired and forgiven. And the fourth thing is the one that I selfishly get excited about, but I'm selfishly excited about it because I know so many of our customers are going to be impacted by this. If you have any cloud computing or software expenses, you can't just hire all these employees back, and they want to give you a way to be able to invest in your company. So if you have been waiting to make an investment in a cloud computing software, Curate qualifies as one of those items. And we're going to be putting up a blog post with more of this information, just so everybody's on the up and up on information.
So can we pause for a second?
I'm
let's
sorry.
talk about cloud computing. So,
Sure.
So that's like your Zoom, your Google Meet,
yes.
when you're doing your online presentations, your Curate software where you're doing your sales, your invoicing, and your proposals.
Your
what else?
Canva. Yeah, I mean, anything
Canva
that you're using, it totally is like sales and operations for your.
That's
Yes,
amazing.
Exactly, right? So again, I can't speak to every single software out there, but I can speak to what the text says, which is like, again, if you're using QuickBooks for accounting, right? That's something that is, in the investment that you put in that is forgivable. So all these different pieces are now things that, maybe for some people, maybe the protest thing is a big thing, but I don't think the mass majority of florists it is. PPE, again, some people in situations probably, maybe those flowers you ordered that died that you didn't get to use and you're out that money for sure. But I think of the 4 new categories they added, it really is that cloud computing. You need to look at every expense you got on the books and ask, okay, can I invest in my company?
That's okay. So this part is news to me. I actually had no idea.
For sure.
That's awesome. That's really
For
great.
sure.
So, all right. Well, I know most of Intrigue uses Curate anyway. So, but those of you who don't, like, that's great. This was not a commercial, by the way. This is just Ryan and I doing that. But
For sure.
That's excellent. All right. What else do we have to share on here?
Well, so the things that, and I will share on my side, I'm like midway through an article in this accounting blogs about that, just released some updates. So I'm about to say a couple things that, according to this accounting blog, it is accurate. So again, all the caveats have been said, but from my understanding, it opens on January the 11th, right? Which I think is
which is Monday. So
Monday.
For
okay.
watching, that January 11th is Monday, right? Yes.
Yes, from my understanding, yes.
This is how the dates work, right?
Right.
So, all right. So that's a really quick turnaround time. So those of you that are
quicker than expected.
This weekend, what you want to do is today, what you want to do is be in touch
today.
with your CPA, absolutely, and start getting that figured out.
Yes, and the other thing too to remember, the applications absolutely close on March 31st, but don't wait for that. Don't be like, all right, I got a little bit of time. Like, you need to be doing the legwork ahead of time, right? I've heard of some people that said they waited a week after the first round of it and it was out. Now they refunded, they added some more money later.
I waited 3 days and it was out.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. But that's, hopefully we're going to be helped a little bit for the people who aren't in Intrigue and for the people who aren't watching this broadcast. Hopefully the way that they've narrowed this down, they're going to give them a better shot at it. But at the same time, it 100% is something you want to be on the ball on. You don't have to know where all of your expenses are going to. You don't have to, have all of this stuff lined up, but you do need to get that initial application in there.
So the application is very simple. It's not this big, complicated. In fact, when I applied in the spring, I did it completely by myself. I didn't even call my CPA. Now, in hindsight, I should have called my CPA because I think I could have got a better deal, but I didn't call my CPA. I just did the paperwork myself, and it really was very simple. And they've even simplified it more. I don't think they've dropped the final application yet, but the one I saw most recently was just 2 pages. I think really, really simple. So this is not overly complicated. This really is our government's way of helping small businesses, which is amazing, because I gotta say, there's a lot of stuff going on in the government that we all have something to say about. But this right here is an excellent program. And I'm
Sure.
really grateful that they have this, because I feel like so many times the big corporations get all the attention.
Right.
And I don't
Right.
remember a time in my life, in my business career life, that I have felt so cared for. And I feel like I have this help of the government that's helping me to propel my small business. This is new, and I love it.
That's awesome for sure. And the sort of the one I got the one thing left that's been like sort of in the back of my mind the whole time here is I feel like a lot of people wonder like, well, what do I qualify for, right? So let's say that I have some money, like what's going to come in, right? So the amount it's basically 2.5% your monthly payroll. If you have a payroll, it's 2.5%, or not 2.5, 2.5 times your monthly payroll. So let's say that you have a monthly payroll of $10,000, right? That means 2.5 times that is $25,000. And then again, keeping in mind, you have to spend 60% of that on payroll, but you can spend up to 40% on things like utilities or cloud computing software or whatever. So that's how you run that calculation.
Now,
If you Go
sorry.
ahead.
Can you talk about, what if you don't have a single employee? What if you are
Got
a
it.
sole proprietor? Do you qualify then?
So you still do qualify. The key thing though, because again, even if you're, my dad used to have a business, and he was not like an LLC or anything like that, but he still had to file a Schedule C. So the key thing is that Schedule C. So that's that document that your accounting company or your TurboTax or whatever populates for you. But it says, here's your company. Like for us, it used to be Twisted Willow Design. Here's Twisted Willow Design, right? And at the bottom of that number, right? So to get into the program, you care about the top number, right? But to get finances, if you're a self-employed, you care about that bottom number. And at the very end, it says, here's how much money you made this year. That's taxable, that you're going to have to pay taxes to the government on. That amount is the key amount there. So let's say, for example, that you profited $50,000 in a year. So, and I know I'm not going to have any numbers on the screen here, so I'm going to try to do this as best as I
All
can with
right.
words. Let's say you profited $50,000, right? 550, I think 550. Thank you, Sarah. Wonderful sign language. But let's say that you profited $50,000, and that's what you reported to the government. You pay taxes on that money. The government's going to say, okay, this is what you, as a sole proprietor, this is what you would have paid to yourself, right? As an employee de facto or whatever. And so they would take that number and they would find out what's our monthly rate, right? So the monthly rate of, I'm about to do math on here just to make sure. The monthly rate of that would be, per month, you're paying about $4,100, something like that, to yourself. Again, do you have to pay taxes on that? Sure, that's not what you're bringing to the bank, but that's what your Schedule C says. And then you would multiply that by 2.5. So you would be sitting, if under this example, you'd be sitting at right over $10,000 that you would qualify for.
Which would be a huge help. That's a chunk of money. That's a big chunk of money.
For sure. That lets me like make the investments I need to, and sort of make it through until when all these events starts coming
And
back.
that's even
For
if
sure.
you have no employees.
That's correct. Yep. That's even if you have if you're self-employed, if you have no employees, and everybody's banker and accountant will be able to help speak to this on a very local situation. But again, that is the case. Now, I will admit, like when my wife and I, we sold Twisted Willow a couple of years ago. But when we were doing our taxes, we always tried to get that number to the smallest number possible every year. We did not want 100,000. We did not want 50,000. We wanted to get it down, and we had some really great tax strategies. We would have benefited from this less because we already took that benefit earlier on, right? So like, the government's basically saying, this is what you pay taxes on, so now let's help you back based on that. So that's kind of the caveat there, but for sure.
Yeah, so this is a great benefit to us, and it is a great benefit to our country's economy as well, because
Yes.
we are getting this outpouring of financial support now, which means, in theory, if we are good business people, and I know here in the Intrigue Designs Group, we are great business people. we should be making even more money, which means,
Right.
yes, we're going to pay more taxes. But I got to tell you, to have the support like this, I will pay my taxes with a smile on my face every year, knowing I'm going to be taken care of. And I think in
Right.
years past, I kind of had this frustration. I'm like, ugh, if anything happens, like, if there's nothing for me. Now there's something
Right.
for me. So I appreciate it. Whoever's up there doing all that stuff in the government and the laws, I appreciate all of you.
For sure. For sure. So I would really recommend everybody, like Sarah said, talk to your accountant, talk to your banker, like start, I mean, don't even send an email, like do a phone call, right? Text them if you got their number, like start saying, hey, I want to get information on this. I need to get this out. Keep an eye out, because Curate, we're going to take a lot of the content we've talked about today. I was just sharing with Sarah what our blog post is going to look like. We've got a blog post that's going to be coming out outlining a lot of these answers, and really hopefully helping out this community very quickly be able to access this.
And if we can get this downloaded in time, I can probably send a copy of this over so you can have that in your blog post as well.
That'd be great. Oh, that would be great. That would be perfect.
Yeah, I want all the florists to hear this. This is good stuff for us.
Right.
All right, well, this is wonderful. Thank you so much. Anything you want to add before we say goodbye for the day and let everyone go call their accountants right now? You know, people are texting already.
They're already texting them right now. It's like a listening and texting. I'm a multitasker.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing. Is like so many people have been discouraged because of one thing. I mean, there's plenty of reasons to be discouraged in 2020, but they've been discouraged and they've sort of just taken themselves out and said, well, someday I'll lift my head up and hopefully everything will be back. Like I really want to encourage you, in spite of that discouragement, in spite of everything that's going on, like, push through this, seek out an opportunity. Hey, I don't know all the details of your situation. There might be a chance that maybe you don't qualify for this. And I want to encourage you, you keep going. You know what? Maybe It's not as much money as you need it, but you still got to keep going. And every chance you have like this, you've got to take that chance. And I would really want to encourage the community in that, because we've got so many great people in this floral community that I want to see grow and thrive. And I want you to keep your head up for sure.
That is great advice. Well, thank you so much. You're always a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of information. And I'd like to ask you as well, as this continues to kind of grow and change, can you join us again? You want to have another, like, I think
I'd be glad to.
All right.
I would absolutely love it. That would be a blast.
All right. That's a thing. You heard it here first. Ryan will be back.
All right, everybody.
Thanks, Ryan. Bye.